Chosen one. Stop scrolling. This is not just another message on your feed. This is a divine appointment scheduled before you even knew how to pray. Heaven has pressed pause on everything around you to deliver this word. A financial transfer has already been scheduled in your name. It's not coming. It's not about to. It's already written. Not by man, not by the world's system, but by the hand of the Almighty. You were not born to borrow forever. You were never meant to merely survive Babylon's broken economy. You were not placed in this generation to chase scraps. You were chosen to steward kingdom supply and disrupt darkness with divine overflow. And that transfer, it has begun. Heavenly accounts are moving. Angelic couriers are being dispatched. And your name has been spoken in the courts of heaven. The voice of God thundered in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 8, verse 18. But remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth. Let that settle in your spirit. You have already been given the ability to multiply. What the world calls a miracle, God calls your assignment, and the enemy knows it. That's why you've been under financial warfare. That's why confusion, lack, and mistiming have hit you over and over. Not because you're weak, but because you're dangerous. The moment a chosen one starts walking in faith toward wealth with kingdom motives, hell trembles. The enemy's greatest fear is not a rich sinner, it's a resourced, righteous one who doesn't just collect wealth, but consecrates it. One who doesn't just rise, but funds revival. That's who you are. This is why you've been through what you've been through. The losses, the delays, the closed doors. It wasn't rejection, it was refinement. Heaven hides its wealthiest heirs until they're ready to carry without pride, to give without fear, and to move without apology. You were not overlooked. You were reserved. And now, the vault is opening. You were always meant to do more than build a house. You're here to build a legacy. You're not just being blessed for you, you're being resourced for generations. There are kingdom strategies on the earth waiting for divine financiers. The world will call you lucky, but heaven knows the truth. You're chosen. And now is the moment to respond. No more walking like a spiritual beggar. No more rehearsing old stories of defeat. It's time to speak. Walk. Give. And lead like someone whose name is on the list. Because it is. This is not prosperity for the sake of status. This is provision with prophetic purpose. What's being released is not for selfish gain, it's for kingdom impact. You've been trusted with the keys to change the atmosphere through giving, building, restoring, and resourcing what Babylon refused to fund. But hear this warning. You cannot step into divine wealth with a casual spirit. This transfer is not for the double-minded. You can't inherit the kingdom's economy while thinking like a slave to scarcity. The mindset must shift. The walk must change. The fire of faith must burn bright. This is the time to activate, not just in belief, but in posture, in speech, in expectation, in bold movement. Because faith is the currency of the kingdom, and right now, heaven is watching how you respond. You don't need to figure it all out. You just need to agree. Agree with heaven's timing. Align with heaven's economy. And accept that you are one of the chosen ones, trusted to carry the transfer. This isn't just encouragement. It's a spiritual transaction. This moment is a turning point. The truth is, if your spirit hadn't been marked, you wouldn't even be seeing this. Heaven doesn't send financial instructions to those not ready. This moment found you Because heaven trusts you. The very fact that you're still reading, still listening, still standing in the tension between lack and promise means that you were born for this moment. You were born for overflow. You're not here by mistake. You didn't just stumble across a random message. You are being summoned into divine alignment, where heaven's abundance meets your obedience, where the drought breaks and the oil begins to pour. If something inside you is testifying, if your spirit knows this message is for you, don't leave this moment unsealed. Comment 888 below as a prophetic act of agreement. 888 is the number of divine new beginnings and supernatural release. By typing it, you're declaring, I align with heaven's transfer, and I will carry it well. And if you haven't subscribed, do that right now. The next divine instruction is coming soon. You've been lied to. The world convinced you that your value is measured by what's in your hands, that your worth is defined by your bank account, that true success belongs to those born into privilege or those who claw their way through systems built to keep others down. But none of that applies to you, because you are not of this world. What's hidden from others has been whispered to your spirit, and even in seasons of lack, something deep inside you has known, there's more. You've looked around and wondered, why do I feel disconnected from the system? It's because you were never meant to be owned by it. You were born with access to a different treasury, one not built on stocks, credit, or approval, one built in the invisible, governed by the unseen, and protected by the eternal. There are storehouses in heaven, real ones, and while the world scrambles to build empires with dust, heaven's vaults remain full, waiting for someone like you to step into obedience, waiting for the faithful to rise, waiting for the righteous to become ready. You don't need to manipulate the system. You don't need to beg for favor. When God opens his treasury, no man can close it. And what has been hidden for the righteous is about to be revealed. You've heard about heavenly rewards, as if they're only for the afterlife. But Scripture makes it clear there are resources reserved here on earth. Resources for assignments. Resources for destiny. There are blessings that don't come through hustle or connection. There is a release that can only be triggered by trust. Wealth that doesn't require promotion, only permission from heaven. Some things don't come until you're spiritually ready. That's why the wait has been long. Note punishment preparation. What's held in heaven's storehouses isn't for the arrogant. It's not for the unsubmitted or those chasing wealth to prove a point. It's for those refined by fire, trusted to steward, not hoard, to give, not boast. You've felt the stretching, the burning away of false attachments, the loss of what you thought was necessary. That wasn't abandonment, it was preparation. Heaven doesn't waste resources. God doesn't pour out wealth into a vessel that leaks through pride or rebellion. He waits. He refines. Then he releases. Chosen one. If you've ever wept in secret, wondering why it felt like everything was being stripped away, it's because heaven was protecting what's coming. The greater the weight, the deeper the foundation, and yours has been laid low through humility, through silence, through invisible obedience. Now, heaven prepares to pour. What is held for you is not simply money. It is wealth with wisdom, favor with fire, abundance with assignment. Heaven's vaults don't hold random treasure. They contain targeted provision, financial solutions bearing your name, timing, placement, connection, supply, hidden riches in secret places. According to what is revealed in the book of Proverbs, chapter 13, verse 22, the wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous. This is not theory, it's spiritual law. While the world flaunts temporary wealth, heaven is storing permanent inheritance for those who carry it with character. And here's what most people miss. Storehouses are not accessed by effort, but by alignment. You can't pray into it while living double-minded. You can't declare wealth while ignoring kingdom principles. The vaults respond to alignment, not desperation. It's about posture, a yielded spirit, a life that says, I will not touch what is not mine, but I will fully receive what is When heaven finds such a one, the vaults open, because delay is costly for you and for the people attached to your assignment. This isn't just about you. The wealth in your hands is meant to bless cities, fund movements, rescue generations, build what others refuse to, reach the unreached, heal, restore. That's why it's been hidden, because it's holy, and holy things are revealed in holy timing. You don't strive for it. You surrender. You don't compete for it. You prepare. You don't force it open. You grow into it. And when it comes, you'll know, not by sudden riches, but by peace, by clarity, by doors opening without striving, provision meeting you mid-step. That's heaven's wealth. No strings, no compromise, only purpose, only power. It comes for the righteous, and it's coming for you. Not next year, not when you feel ready. The shift is already happening. Even now, things are moving in the unseen because heaven has already said, yes. 1. You've been silent long enough, watching others rise, wondering when your moment would come, keeping the fire burning behind closed doors while the world overlooked you, carrying quiet obedience while others danced in the spotlight. You never sought applause, you sought alignment. And because of that, heaven has been watching. There's something different about you. You don't chase attention. You chase God. And because you've chosen the narrow path, the hidden path, you are now standing on the threshold of heaven's public release. But before manifestation comes, there's always a moment of recognition, a moment when the spirit inside you must say, yes, that word was mine. End of. This is that moment. You're not just hearing this message, you're being called out by it. Because the spirit realm recognizes who you really are. Even when the natural world still treats you like a nobody, the demonic realm knows what's written about you. That's why the resistance has been intense. It's not that you were doing something wrong, it's that you were getting too close to destiny, too close to clarity, too close to financial release, too close to becoming the version of yourself hell hoped you'd never find. And now here you are, standing in a divine collision between prophecy and preparation. You didn't find this word by chance. It was scheduled. And everything inside you knows that. Don't let fear mute your agreement. Don't let doubt keep you passive. Open your mouth. Let your spirit respond. Because every time you say yes in the spirit, you make it harder for hell to hold what belongs to you. You've been carrying prophetic weight in silence. Others mocked what they didn't understand. They laughed at your obedience. They called you unrealistic. But deep down, you knew you weren't crazy. You were early. You were building in faith what others needed to see, finished to believe. That's why you were attacked. That's why resources seemed to dry up right as you were getting started. That's why doors would crack open, then slam shut. The enemy was trying to wear you out before the vaults opened. But you didn't quit. You stayed. You prayed. You planted seeds when you barely had any. And heaven saw every act of quiet obedience. Every time you gave when it didn't make sense. Every time you believed when there was no confirmation. And now, that faith is speaking louder than any doubt in the atmosphere. That faith is pulling something into motion. Something is shifting in the spirit. You feel it. The air around you is different. The delay has broken. The resistance is thinning. The heavens are responding to what you refused to let die. Some people wait for confirmation. But chosen ones, they become the confirmation. Right now, your yes is unlocking not just finances, but divine timing, alignments, angelic assistance, instructions. You're about to start hearing God more clearly. You're about to start discerning opportunities faster. You'll notice things others overlook. Because this isn't just a wealth transfer, it's a revelation release. Heaven is not just funding your hands, it's upgrading your vision. You're no longer called to play small. What you carry is too heavy to fit in shallow spaces. The calling on your life demands room. You've outgrown old mentalities, old systems, and old circles. And heaven is about to confirm what you've been sensing. It's time to move differently. Some people won't understand the next version of you. That's okay. God didn't call them. He called you. You've been faithful with the fragments. Now, get ready for the overflow. It is written in the book of Hebrews, chapter 10, verse 35. So do not throw away your confidence. It will be richly rewarded. Yes. Your confidence is not pride. It is a prophetic posture. And heaven responds to boldness rooted in belief. But before heaven pours, you must agree. Your faith activates the transfer. Your response becomes your receipt. Don't let this pass like just another message. Let the spirit realm hear you. Comment, my name is on it. This is not just a statement, it is a declaration of spiritual ownership. When you type those words, you are saying, this word is mine. This transfer has my name on it. I will not let it pass me by. You are putting your name on the scroll of obedience, the list of the trusted. You are claiming your portion without apology or hesitation. And when heaven sees that level of bold agreement, it releases what has been held. So speak it. My name is on it. Let hell hear it. Let heaven record it. Let your soul remember what you claimed. Because what's coming to you is not just about money, it's about mandate. And the chosen must claim it before they carry it. Not everything that broke you was meant to destroy you. Some of it was sent to expose what was never real. Some of it was allowed to purify what couldn't go with you. And some of it, yes, even the parts that still ache, was part of a divine setup you didn't see coming. Because what looked like loss was actually divine leverage. What felt like abandonment was heavenly positioning. What you called delay, God called strategy. Chosen one. You are not behind. You are not too late. And you have not missed your moment. In fact, everything up until now has been preparing the stage for what comes next. You weren't being punished. You were being preserved. While others rushed ahead, gaining access before they were ready. You were being rooted. While others built image, you were being given depth. while others flexed influence. You were learning the weight of true authority, because divine wealth doesn't fall on shallow soil. And what God is about to entrust to your hands can't be supported by ego, ambition, or emotional instability. It must rest on a life that has been broken and reformed by the potter's hands. That's why the delay hurt. That's why the isolation felt unfair. That's why your wilderness season lasted longer than you expected. You were being shaped for something weightier than you imagined. Heaven knew what you were called to carry, and it cost you normalcy. It cost you comfort. It cost you approval. It cost you the ease of ordinary life. And you asked, more than once, why me? But in truth, the real question was, why not you? Why not the one who still chose to worship in the dark? Why not the one who gave when there was barely enough to survive? Why not the one who didn't curse God when the promise seemed to vanish? You proved something in private that heaven now wants to reveal in public. There is no wasted pain, and there is no anointing without crushing. That financial pressure, that prolonged lack, it wasn't random. It was preparing you to hold provision without being owned by it. If God had released the wealth too soon, it might have become an idol, a distraction, a source of pride or spiritual decay. But because you've walked through fire and remained faithful, you're now positioned to receive and carry what others would have mishandled. You don't need another confirmation. You need to remember. Remember the days when you had to believe God for your next meal. Remember the nights you laid awake trying to understand why you were still stuck. Remember the moments you praised Him, not because of the breakthrough, but in spite of its absence. Those moments didn't delay the promise. They qualified you for it. God never needed your perfection. He was after your purity. And now that you've passed through the furnace without giving up, you are walking into something bigger than a blessing. You're stepping into divine trust. And that trust is weightier than gold. You see, God is not looking for people who just want to be blessed. He's looking for those who will become the blessing, those who can carry it without changing, those who will fund heaven's agenda while the world is chasing their own. You are one of them, not because you earned it, but because you endured. And now, you're about to realize that every detour was directional, every delay was instructional, every disappointment was pruning, not punishment. Sometimes God doesn't answer your prayers for more because He loves you too much to give it to the version of you that wasn't ready. But now, the version of you that remains is different, stronger, kalmir, unshaken, and trusted. The promise hasn't changed. The call hasn't shifted. But you have. That's the whole point. Because while others rushed into success and lost themselves in the spotlight, you were being handed foundation. And what's built on this kind of foundation will last. This isn't about chasing prosperity. It's about stepping into responsibility. You've been marked for movement, for managing divine resources, for releasing solutions the world didn't know it needed. And for that, you had to be trained in a language most never understand: silence, surrender, and steadfastness. Don't resent the process that made you unstoppable, because the same places that broke you are about to become the very places God builds through you. The very land that mocked you will be the soil where your testimony takes root. The same people who overlooked you will watch you steward what they couldn't hold. And not for your glory, but for His. As the Spirit revealed through the prophet Isaiah, chapter 60, verse 22, when the time is right, I, the Lord, will make it happen. God's timing is never rushed, never late, always perfect. You thought the door was shut. He was just still preparing the room. So walk forward, quietly, boldly, authentically. You don't need to prove yourself. Your life will speak, and your obedience will unlock what performance never could. You are living in the days prophets longed to see. Days when the very words spoken in secret chambers of heaven are now unfolding before your eyes. You, chosen one, are not just a witness to prophecy, you are the fulfillment of it, what others only dreamed of. You will walk in. There has never been a generation more strategically positioned than yours. Never has the clash between darkness and light been so visible. And in the middle of it all, you are not here to spectate. You were born for divine participation. You carry inside you the evidence that God still keeps his promises, especially in a world where many have given up believing. You've noticed it, the stirring, the urgency, the way things that used to distract you no longer satisfy. That's because your spirit is remembering who you are. You weren't created for survival, you were marked for divine fulfillment. What the prophets declared. You were destined to demonstrate. This divine wealth transfer is not an abstract idea. It is a living promise, and it is scheduled to manifest in your lifetime. Not because you're lucky, but because you are positioned. Positioned in faith, positioned in obedience, positioned in prophetic alignment. It's no accident that you're seeing this message right now. Heaven has sent confirmation. The timeline of fulfillment is here. You're not the seed of fear. You're the harvest of faith. Generation prayed, fasted, and fought for a remnant to rise. You are that remnant, and the resources of heaven are being released so the plans of heaven can be fulfilled through you. But this is critical. You must not shrink. The enemy's only remaining weapon is intimidation. He knows he can't stop the transfer. So he wants to convince you not to take hold of it. That's why warfare has increased. That's why your mind has been under pressure. That's why doubt has crept in just as the door began to open. Because the closer you get to manifestation, the louder the lies become. But the word of God still stands. Heaven speaks clearly through the writings of David in the Psalms. Chapter 145, verse 13. The Lord is faithful to all his promises and loving toward all he has made. Every promise still stands. Every seed you've sown in faith is remembered. Every silent yes. Every private sacrifice. Every act of obedience, it's all been recorded. And now, the fullness of time has arrived. You're about to live in what others only studied. So don't heed your light. Don't minimize your assignment. Don't disqualify yourself from what heaven already qualified you for. You were never meant to blend in. You are fulfillment in motion. And as you rise into this next phase, don't walk alone. Stay connected to the flow of what heaven is pouring out. If this message is piercing your spirit, like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss a single divine instruction. And if you feel stirred, led, or called to sow back into the message, into the anointing that's confirming your assignment, do it freely, not out of pressure, not out of guilt, but as a prophetic act of faith that says, I believe in this word. I honor what God is building here, and I want to fuel it forward. Your seed isn't just generosity, it's alignment. Your support helps make space for more chosen ones to be reached, just like you were. Because this isn't just about you. This is about fulfilling heaven's plan in the earth through a remnant that won't bow, won't break, and won't back down. You are part of a divine pattern, a prophetic puzzle piece in a much bigger plan. And when you step into your role, everything around you begins to align. Opportunities show up, favor increases, divine appointments happen. Why? Because heaven supports what heaven initiates. You don't have to strive when you're sent. All you have to do is say yes again. And don't let your yes be private only. Let it be bold. Let it be contagious. Let others see you walk with confidence. Speak with authority. Give with freedom. And obey without delay. That is what it means to be a fulfillment carrier. You're not waiting for permission anymore. You have it. You're not waiting for confirmation anymore. You've just received it. So go forward. And as you go, bring others with you. Because the days of hoping are shifting into the days of walking. The promises are not just coming, they're here. And they're resting on the ones who stayed faithful, who didn't fold, and who still believe God finishes what He starts. There are moments in time when heaven speaks so clearly, it silences every other voice. This is one of them, chosen one. You are not just being blessed, you are being positioned for ownership, for authority, for transfer. What's coming to your life is not charity. It is rightful inheritance. And the reason it feels heavier now is because the vaults of heaven are being unlocked in real time. This didn't begin today. It didn't begin when you heard your first prophetic word. The records of heaven show that this transfer was scheduled long before you ever asked for it. There is wealth assigned to your name that the enemy has tried to intercept for years, but his time has run out. What once was delayed is now accelerating, because heaven has found you ready. It's not about how much you know, it's about how much you've surrendered. The system looks for performance. God looks for posture. That's why you've been misunderstood. That's why the rooms you entered didn't know what to do with you. You didn't carry natural credentials. You carried divine clearance. You were never trying to compete. You were born to take territory. There's no more pretending. You've outgrown the wilderness. And even though you learned to survive there, God didn't bring you this far to stay stuck in survival mode. This is the hour when survival must give way to possession. You've crossed over, and now the land is waiting. The storehouses of heaven are not reserved for those who play it safe. They are unlocked by those who obey when it's costly, when it's quiet, when it's lonely. And that's what you've done. The shifting you feel, right now, it's real. The restlessness, the spiritual pressure, the sudden clarity, it's the signal that the transfer is in motion. What was once theory is becoming testimony. You won't just talk about promise, you will hold it. You will live in it. You will release it. As the Spirit revealed through the voice of Job in chapter 22, verse 21, submit to God and be at peace with Him. In this way prosperity will come to you. And there is no prosperity without submission, no overflow without surrender. This is why heaven has waited not until you were qualified, but until you were yielded. The prosperity you're stepping into is not birthed in striving, it is birthed in alignment. And you've been chosen for that exact purpose, to be a vessel heaven can trust. You didn't come this far just to say, I survived. You're not just here to escape. You're here to build, to fund, to shift atmospheres with your presence. You are being trusted to carry provision into places poverty tried to rule for generations. And now that the timing is aligned, heaven is looking for your agreement, not with a whisper, with boldness. Chosen one. Let the spirit realm hear you. If this word is igniting something inside you, if your spirit is saying finally, then don't scroll in silence. Comment 444 below. Why 444? Because this number prophetically represents open doors, angelic movement, and heaven-earth alignment. It's a sign that your time is not coming, it's now. When you comment it, you're declaring, I recognize the door, I walk through it, and you are aligning your voice with heaven's movement. This is not a superstition. It is a prophetic act, because sometimes the smallest act of faith becomes the very key that unlocks massive doors. And chosen one. You're standing in front of one right now. The world will call it luck, but heaven calls it divine recompense. You are being paid back for battles no one saw, for seeds you sowed in silence, for nights of surrender that were never shared with anyone else. Even now, what was blocked is being opened, not because you manipulated it, but because you were faithful when it didn't make sense. This is your reward, but it's also your responsibility. You're not receiving just to keep, you're receiving to release. Heaven has spoken. The vaults are open. Your name is on it. And because your name is on it, no demon can erase it. No delay can cancel it. No mistake you've made has disqualified you. When God schedules a transfer, it is not up for debate. What he releases is final. What he seals, no man can undo. So, walk like it's yours. Think like it's done. Pray like it's moving. Because the moment your faith agrees, the realm of heaven responds. The transfer is real and it's active. You are standing at a crossroads of covenant, not the kind that screams with obvious signs, but the kind heaven watches in stillness, the kind that separates the ones who only hear from the ones who carry. This is not about hype, it's about inheritance. And inheritance doesn't fall into casual hands. It falls into hands that have been emptied, opened, and readied. The real danger isn't in losing the promise, it's in trading it. Every generation faces it. That Esau moment, when hunger speaks louder than legacy, when temporary satisfaction feels more appealing than future possession, and all it takes is one moment of weakness, one lapse of vision, for something sacred to be handed over, for something small. You've been tested. You've felt that pull, the desire to settle, the weariness of waiting, the pressure to choose what's easy over what's eternal. And yet you're still here, still holding, still hungry for more than what the world offers. That's not coincidence. That's covenant. You didn't keep yourself. Grace kept you. And now, the Spirit is reminding you, do not sell your birthright, because whether you see it clearly or not, what you carry is weighty. Your decisions don't just affect you. They shape bloodlines. They impact territory. They ripple through generations. You're not just making personal choices, you're making prophetic ones. The enemy isn't after your feelings. He's after your future. And one of his oldest strategies is to pressure you to exchange what's permanent for what's passing. Esau wasn't ignorant. He was just tired. He didn't lose his blessing to an enemy. He surrendered it to convenience. He gave up the long term for the right now. And that's the war you've been in. The enemy has been offering shortcuts, compromises, distractions that look like opportunities. He's been whispering lies like, maybe this is good enough, or maybe God didn't really say that. But deep down, your spirit knows. This is not the end. This is the testing. And here's the truth. You are closer than you realize. That's why the warfare has increased. That's why the offers to compromise have become more tempting. Because the enemy only negotiates when he senses he's about to lose. Don't trade your promise for comfort. Don't trade your anointing for applause. Don't trade your purity for acceptance. Don't trade your obedience for approval. This world will try to convince you that what you carry isn't valuable until it looks like what they want. But the Spirit says otherwise. As Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 16, verse 26, "What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul?" What you're being offered might look shiny now, but it won't last. The oil on your life is eternal. The wealth that's coming is consecrated, and if it's birthed from compromise, it will always come with chains. You weren't born for chains. You were born for crowns. And yes, crowns come with pressure. Yes, they come with responsibility, but they also come with authority. And you've been marked to reign, not in arrogance, but in assignment. Your birthright is not just a blessing, it's a blueprint, a divine pattern you were designed to build with. And if you surrender it, you're not just letting go of wealth, you're letting go of divine identity. You are not a beggar in this kingdom. You are an heir. So don't fall for the lies that tell you you're asking for too much. You're not asking for riches, you're contending for what's already been written, what's already been signed, what's already yours. Hold the line, hold the standard, even when it costs you the room, even when it means being misunderstood. Because what God has prepared for those who do not bow is far greater than what's offered to those who settle. The pressure is proof you're near the threshold. The warfare is a sign the vault is close. You will not miss it unless you surrender to the short term. Let heaven find you still holding the scroll, still carrying the mantle, still refusing to sell what blood paid for. You are not Esau. You are called, kept, and crowned. And what's coming will make the waiting worth it. You chose obedience over applause, surrender over shortcuts, purpose over popularity, and because of that, heaven has reserved something rare for you, a reward the impatient will never touch. The vaults are opening not just to bless you, but to prove one thing to the world. You did not sell your soul to get here. The system you were born into was never designed for you. It was built to contain you, to shape your thinking, to limit your movement, to make you believe that what you see is all there is. But deep inside, you've always known it wasn't true. Even when you had nothing in your hands, your spirit whispered, "I was made for more than this." That wasn't pride. That was prophetic awareness. The world taught you to survive. Heaven marked you to dismantle and rebuild. You were not sent here to adapt to Babylon. You were sent here to expose it. You weren't assigned to fit in. You were assigned to overthrow every counterfeit system that tries to masquerade as normal. You feel it every time you walk into a room and the atmosphere shifts. You sense it when you speak truth and silence falls. You've always known that something about you disrupts darkness, and for years, you thought that was a problem. But now you're starting to understand it's the proof you've been set apart. What you carry cannot be caged. The system isn't just afraid of your calling, it's terrified of your authority. Because once a chosen one realizes who they really are, the illusion of limitation is broken forever. And that is when chains begin to fall. not just for you, but for everyone assigned to your voice. You were never meant to survive in Babylon's economy. You were born to operate in heaven's. That's why you've always been uncomfortable in shallow spaces. Why promotions in man's system never satisfied you. Why compromise never quite fit. Because the truth is, you weren't designed for their currency. Your life is governed by a different economy, one that moves by obedience, not opportunity, one that multiplies through surrender, not striving. And now, you've been called to tear down what never had the right to rule. As heaven reveals in the writings of the prophet Micah, chapter 3, verse 8, "But as for me, I am filled with power, with the Spirit of the Lord, and with justice and might, to declare, this is not the season for silence. It's the hour of declaration, of standing in rooms built to break you and speaking as one sent, not one seeking approval. This is where systems begin to fall, when heaven's carriers stop apologizing for their assignment. What you're building can't be funded by the world's rules. And it doesn't need to be. Heaven doesn't take out loans to fund its mission. The vaults are opening to those who no longer chase access from man, but alignment with God. And that's you. You've been refined, purified, stripped from depending on broken systems. You've learned to live without applause, without visibility, without platform. And because of that, you're now trusted to carry what Babylon could never contain. This is why the warfare against your finances has been so relentless. Why every time you seemed to rise, something knocked you back. Why others with less purity and less purpose seemed to prosper while you wrestled with scarcity. Because the system couldn't buy you. And what it can't buy, it tries to bury. But it's too late. You've outlasted it. And now, the tables are turning. This is the season when the system will watch the righteous rise. Not because they fought dirty. Not because they compromised. But because they were willing to be hidden. Willing to be refined. Willing to wait for the moment when heaven, not man, would say, "Now." Oh. And that moment has come. You're not called to replicate Babylon's blueprint. You're called to replace it with kingdom infrastructure, with justice, with wisdom, with wealth that doesn't perish, but multiplies across generations. You've been called to release the strategies of heaven in places where corruption has ruled for too long, but you can't release heaven's wealth using Babylon's methods. This is not about hustle culture. This is about heaven culture. It's not about climbing ladders. It's about planting altars. It's about rebuilding ruined cities, restoring broken families, and realigning economies with righteousness. And that kind of work can't be done by people who need the system's validation. That's why God had to strip you from it. That's why the doors you prayed for never opened. That's why your name wasn't invited to their table. Because God wasn't sending you to sit there, He was preparing you to build your own. This is not rebellion. It's reformation. And you were born to lead it. There is a moment when obedience stops being about sacrifice and starts unlocking supernatural supply. Chosen one. You are standing in that moment now. You've walked through the testing. You've waited through silence. You've given when it didn't make sense. And now, heaven is responding not just to your pain, but to your posture. This next level of wealth isn't coming through labor or logic. It's coming through radical obedience, the kind that shifts atmospheres and moves angelic forces. You've felt the pressure, the tug of war between faith and fear, the wrestling between convenience and conviction, and you've chosen obedience. even when no one was watching. That matters more than you know. Some people give to be seen. Others obey to get ahead. But you obey because you love him. That's what heaven honors. You didn't just follow instructions, you followed whispers. You didn't just respond to opportunity, you responded to unexplainable unctions. And that level of obedience always unlocks vaults others don't even know exist. The reason the warfare intensified wasn't because you were disobedient, it was because you were obedient. Hell doesn't attack what poses no threat, and your obedience has put pressure on the very gates of darkness. Let's be clear, you haven't just been living through tests. You've been passing them. Every time you said no to the counterfeit, heaven kept score. Every time you chose integrity over influence, purity over platform, process over shortcuts, it was recorded. Obedience is not glamorous. It rarely makes sense, but it always produces fruit. And for you, the fruit is beginning to form. The Spirit reminds us in the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 15, verse 22, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed is better than the fat of rams. You are not being blessed randomly. This is not a lucky season. This is a rewarded one. Obedience has a sound in the Spirit, and when heaven hears it, the gates open. But be warned, this level requires even greater discernment, because not every open door is divine. Not every opportunity is aligned. You will be tested again, not with pain, but with success. You will be tempted, not by suffering, but by the subtle offer to take shortcuts in seasons of abundance. That's why God is not just blessing you, He's building spiritual stamina in you. He's teaching you to listen deeply, to move quickly, to hesitate less. Because wealth transfers are not just financial, they are strategic. The timing matters. The obedience must be immediate. And you've been chosen to model that. There are people tied to your next yes. There are blueprints waiting on your movement. There are regions that will be transformed, not when you pray for breakthrough, but when you obey the instruction you already received. Heaven is not waiting to be convinced. It's waiting to be agreed with. You don't need more confirmation. You need more courage. Because the next move is going to require you to walk by faith like never before. You may not have all the details, but you do have the word. You may not see the staircase, but you've heard the next step. Take it. And if you know this section pierced something in you, if you know your obedience has cost you something, and you sense this is the moment where heaven is responding, comment, "My answer is yes." Laz, don't wait to have all the details. Don't wait to feel fully prepared. Heaven doesn't need your perfection. It needs your agreement. This simple yes carries weight in the Spirit. It tells God, even if I don't see the full path, I trust the one who's leading me. And your yes is not passive, it is prophetic. It moves angels. It activates assignments. It releases provision. Say it with full surrender. Let every realm know. You've decided. Because when you say yes to God, you say no to fear. You say no to delay. You say no to every generational lie that told you to wait for a more perfect version of yourself. But your yes is already dangerous. It speaks louder than your resume, louder than your past, louder than your surroundings. It tells every opposing spirit, I am not backing down. I've made my decision. And because of that one act of agreement, heaven moves. Do not underestimate what your obedience in this moment will unlock, not just for you, but for those who are watching your life as proof that faith still works, that surrender still matters. You said yes, and that changed everything. There comes a time when revelation must become revolution. Chosen one. You haven't been receiving all of these confirmations just to feel good. These messages weren't sent to entertain your spirit. They were sent to activate it. You've been hearing word after word, seeing sign after sign, not because you're being teased by heaven, but because heaven is preparing you to step into governance. You are not just a hearer. You are a steward. And what you steward now will determine the reach of what's released next. You are in the middle of a divine upgrade, not just in finances, not just in influence, but in your assignment. This is not about being seen. It's about being entrusted. And what God is preparing to entrust to you requires maturity, movement, and momentum. No more sitting on prophetic words like they're trophies on a shelf. No more spiritual procrastination disguised as waiting on God. You already know what He told you. You already carry the blueprint. The only thing missing is your execution. Obedience is what separates the dreamers from the builders. You were never called to just dream. You were called to construct the future with heaven. And yes, construction costs something. Sometimes it costs comfort. Sometimes it costs relationships. Sometimes it costs you visibility. But the cost of not building is far greater, because when you withhold your obedience, people miss their freedom. Territories stay in bondage. Cycles remain unbroken. Not because you failed, but because you delayed. You are a gatekeeper. You are a kingdom investor. What flows through you doesn't just bless you, it establishes government, legacy, impact. You were chosen for this level because you can be trusted at this level. That's why you've been attacked in your finances. That's why the enemy tried to make you doubt your worth, your call, your timing. He wasn't after your stuff. He was after your stewardship. Because once a chosen one realizes that their wealth isn't about status, but strategy, everything changes. You stop giving out of guilt and start sowing with precision. You stop asking for resources and start commanding them into alignment. You are not just blessed, you are backed. And this is your moment to build boldly, as the Apostle Paul reminds us in the second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 9, verse 8. And God is able to bless you abundantly, so that in all things, at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work. You're not being called to abundance for the sake of luxury. You're being called to abundance for the sake of function. The good work, the assignment, the movement that will shake systems and liberate people. So don't second-guess this moment. Don't shrink when you should expand. This is not the time to hold back your voice, your ideas, or your seed. When you recognize that heaven is placing real kingdom keys in your hands, you act like a builder, not a bystander. And if this message is confirming something deep in your spirit, if it feels like it was written with your name on it, I want to encourage you. Don't just receive passively. Engage, share, subscribe, so you stay connected to this divine flow, not just for inspiration, but for instruction. Every message carries something fresh from the throne room, and if you feel led, called, or stirred in your spirit, so, not out of pressure, never out of fear, but because you recognize the value of the word that just met you, Because you understand the principle of kingdom exchange. Because when you sow into what fed you, you align yourself with the same flow that birthed it. You're not funding a message. You're activating an altar. And heaven never ignores a seed sown in faith. You may not see the return instantly, but heaven doesn't pay late. Your obedience will always bring back more than it cost. Don't underestimate your seed. Don't downplay your yes. You are laying bricks in the unseen. You are resourcing the reformation. You are partnering with something eternal. If you wait for everything to make sense before you move, you'll miss the moment. But if you move now, with faith, with fire, with alignment, doors will open that hustle could never touch. You're not here by accident. This message found you on purpose. So take a moment, breathe in what the Spirit is saying, and decide, what will I build with what I've just received? You are not empty-handed. You are not unsupported. You are loaded with revelation, and heaven is watching to see what you'll do with it. What starts in secret will soon be seen by all. There's a sound in the Spirit that always precedes breakthrough. It's not the roar of crowds or the noise of celebration. It's the sound of quiet obedience. The kind that happens behind closed doors. The kind that doesn't get applause. The kind that costs more than most people will ever know. Chosen one. You have made decisions in silence that heaven is now answering in public. You walked away from deals that weren't clean. You rejected opportunities that looked profitable but came with compromise. You've said no to what others would have called a blessing because you recognized it wasn't covenant. And now, the reward is being released. Not because you chased favor, but because you chose faithfulness. This is where many fall away. Not in the battle, but in the building. Not when things are hard, but when things are unclear. Because sometimes the hardest step is not walking away from sin, it's walking away from lesser callings. But you've done it. You've chosen to say, if it's not God, I don't want it. And that one sentence has shifted everything. You've been asking for confirmation. But what you didn't realize is, you are the confirmation. Your life, your purity, your consistency is the proof that God still has a remnant who will walk upright even when no one is clapping for them. There are transfers being released right now, not to the loudest, not to the most visible, but to the most faithful. And you are one of them. The word of the Lord through the prophet Jeremiah in chapter 17, verse 7, declares, "But blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in him." That's you. You trusted when it didn't make sense. You stayed when it was dry. You waited when it felt unfair. And because of that, you are now crossing into a season where what you carried in private will become visible in public. But not for your glory, for His. Because what's coming won't just elevate your life, it will validate His hand on you. The very ones who dismissed you will have no choice but to acknowledge. Something supernatural is at work. But this is not the time to gloat. It's the time to prepare. Blessing without preparation becomes burden. Favor without foundation becomes failure. And God loves you too much to give you overflow without anchoring you first. That's why you felt the pressure, the internal tension, the stretching. You thought it was warfare, but much of it was heaven's training. You've been learning how to manage what hasn't arrived yet. You've been positioned not just for increase, but for influence. You're not just called to hold wealth, you're called to shape atmospheres with it. You're not just called to receive resources, you're called to redirect them, redeem them, repurpose them for kingdom advancement. But make no mistake, the testing will not stop with the breakthrough. It will continue. Because God doesn't just anoint chosen ones, He trusts them to be examples. Your life will preach louder than your words. That's why you've had to walk the long way. That's why shortcuts didn't work. Because God wasn't just preparing a blessing for you, He was preparing you for the blessing. And now, as things begin to open, don't look back at what you lost. Don't mourn the doors that didn't open. Don't envy those who took the easy way. Their story is not yours. Their journey isn't required to carry what you've been assigned. You were built for more. You were called to last. And now, as the windows of heaven begin to pour, you must remain anchored. Anchored in truth. Anchored in purity. Anchored in the word that carried you through your wilderness. Because what's coming will attract attention. But don't be distracted by it. You didn't ask for influence, but it's coming. You didn't chase platforms, but they're watching. You didn't try to go viral, but your obedience has made noise in places you've never stepped into. Why? Because integrity always echoes, and when the wave of wealth and visibility hits, you will stand, not in arrogance, but in assignment. You didn't build your name. You built the altar. And now, God is building the platform. So stay steady. Stay sharp. Stay surrender. The same God who kept you when no one saw you will keep you now that they do. You've waited well. You've passed the test. Now, step into the release with reverence. And don't forget this truth. What was hidden in faith is now being crowned in full view for God's glory. You are entering the moment that history will remember as your turning point, not because you forced it, not because you manipulated it, but because you stayed the course when everything in you wanted to quit. Chosen one. This is the hour where the records in heaven are being updated with your name marked in faithfulness. The vault that has remained sealed for what felt like years, it is beginning to shift open. This isn't imagination. It's manifestation. You have sown in secret. You've bled in silence. You've obeyed when no one was looking. And now, the reward is coming not just with restoration, but with divine recognition. What took others decades to build, God will release to you in a moment of alignment. But it won't be because of your strategy. It will be because of your surrender. There's a grace reserved for those who don't just want the blessing, but want God inside the blessing. You've proven that you'd rather walk with Him in lack than prosper without Him, and heaven has taken notice. You've already outlived the lies that said you missed your moment. You've already overcome the voice of delay that tried to convince you that your time had passed. Now you must silence the final enemy, unbelief. This is where many fail, not in the wilderness, but on the edge of breakthrough. They start to question the signs. They start to intellectualize the timing. But you are different. You are still believing when there is nothing left to see. And that's why it's being scheduled in your name. Heaven doesn't align with emotions. It aligns with faith. And your faith has been louder than your fear. That's what has moved the hand of God. As recorded in the writings of the Apostle James, chapter 1, verse 12, "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because, having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love Him." Lun, you've stood the test. You've persevered through seasons that tried to strip you of identity, confidence, and even your ability to hope. But now, hope is rising not as a feeling, but as a prophetic signal that your door is near. And listen carefully. This door is not like the ones before. This one does not lead you back into what was familiar. This one leads you forward into dominion. This isn't about getting back what you lost. This is about receiving what was always yours, but guarded for the right time. And the time is now. Not tomorrow. Not when you feel ready. Not when you finally see evidence. Now, because the shift doesn't wait for comfort. It waits for alignment. And every part of your journey has been shaping you for this exact intersection of faith and fulfillment. This is the moment that splits your life into before and after. You've survived enough. You've waited long enough. Now, you're being handed not just increase, but responsibility. Wealth that has purpose. Access that carries assignment. Visibility that demands virtue. And if your spirit knows this is not hype, but a holy interruption, if you feel the confirmation rising even as you read, comment 555. Why 555? Because this number is prophetic of grace upon grace, divine multiplication, and sudden alignment. It's heaven's stamp that what's unfolding in your life is not a coincidence, it's a covenant moment. When you type it, you're not just engaging, you're declaring, I agree with heaven. I step into divine timing. No, this is how you respond when the scroll of your life is being unsealed. Not with hesitation, not with doubt, but with faith loud enough to echo into the atmosphere. You're not here by chance. You're here because your name was whispered in heaven and earth, had to make room for what you carry. So stand firm. Stay humble. Walk through the door without apology, and let 555 be the seal of your surrender, your spiritual signature that says, I recognize my hour has come. And when you type 555, you're not just dropping digits in a comment, you're activating your atmosphere. You are placing a flag in the spirit, signaling to angels, I'm ready. Heaven has permission to move. This is no longer about waiting for the right wave. You've become the one who causes the wave. You are stepping into prophetic fulfillment, not emotionally, but legally. Heaven is backing your movement. The vault is not just opening for you, it's opening through you. So type it boldly. Stand in it completely. Declare it with unwavering trust. Grace is marking this moment. And I will not miss my hour. The season of delay is over. 555 is not your hope, it's your receipt. What you are stepping into has already been written, not in a planner, not in a proposal, but in the scroll of your destiny, long before you were born. This moment isn't random, it's remembered. This is a preordained unveiling of what heaven designed and hell tried to delay. And yet here you are, still standing, still seeking, still listening. Every detour you've walked through was not a denial. It was a divine redirection crafted to protect what was planted in you from being misused by people who wouldn't have valued it. Sometimes God doesn't say no to punish you. He says, wait to preserve the purity of what He's birthing in you. This season is not about rescue. It's about revelation. You're not being saved from something. You're being shown who you really are. The reason the pressure has been so intense is because the scroll is being unsealed. The time-locked assignments written in eternity are beginning to unfold, and the earth must now respond to what heaven already saw. And here's what heaven saw: you obeying in secret, long before anyone validated you. You giving when it made no sense. You fasting when no one noticed. You praying when the answers didn't come. It was seen. It was stored. It was scheduled. As heaven speaks clearly through the prophet Isaiah, chapter 60, verse 22, when the time is right, I, the Lord, will make it happen. This is not just your moment, it's the right moment. One that has been tested by time and purified by delay. And because it's the right time, nothing can stop it. No enemy, no opinion, no system, no limitation. Heaven has overruled every obstacle and issued a release order in your name. But here's what most people don't understand. When God begins to move suddenly, it doesn't always look spiritual. Sometimes it looks like unusual favor. Sometimes it looks like discomfort in places that used to feel safe. Sometimes it looks like people leaving who were never meant to stay. And sometimes it looks like doors flying open that you didn't even knock on. Don't miss the move just because it doesn't feel familiar. God is moving in the unfamiliar. He's shifting you out of what you've mastered into what you've been mantled for. You weren't born to repeat cycles. You were born to break them. You weren't sent to blend in. You were sent to disturb darkness. That's why you've never fit in for long. That's why every time you tried to settle, something inside you screamed for more. Not more money, not more applause, but more alignment. This deep yearning inside of you isn't dissatisfaction. It's prophetic DNA remembering its assignment. You're not crazy. You're not unstable. You're just out of place when you try to live beneath your scroll. There's a reason you can't force yourself to be excited about things that excite others. There's a reason mediocrity exhausts you. You were never meant to exist in the shallow. You were designed to operate in the deep waters of destiny. And deep always costs more. More silence. More resistance. More waiting. More obedience when you have less clarity. But with that cost comes a weight that shallow people will never carry, the weight of kingdom release. You are not chasing success. You are hosting fulfillment. And fulfillment comes at the exact intersection of God's timing and your obedience. And this is that intersection. Don't try to explain it to everyone. Don't water it down to make it easier to swallow. What God is doing in you isn't supposed to make sense to everyone. It's supposed to make impact. When this chapter opens fully, it will confirm what your spirit always knew. I was never behind. I was being built. No, you are not emerging because you pushed your way in. You are emerging because heaven said, now. No. So, don't tiptoe into this moment. Don't apologize for the grace you carry. Don't shrink to make others comfortable. You didn't ask to be chosen, but you were. And now that the scroll is being read, it's time to walk in what was always yours. Not in arrogance, but in assurance. Not to be impressive, but to be effective. You don't need permission. You carry authorization. Let the scroll speak louder than the past. Let the timing of God drown out the doubts of man. You don't have to chase what was already written. You only need to walk in it. And when you do, everything that once resisted, you will be forced to recognize your divine legitimacy. There is a moment in every chosen one's life where the wilderness no longer defines them but refines them. And you, chosen one, are walking out of that wilderness with more than scars. You're walking out with strategy, vision, and fire. You didn't come out the same. That was the point. Everything you lost, there was not punishment, it was purification. Everything that felt delayed wasn't wasted, it was designed. because what you're about to carry requires someone who doesn't just know pain, but someone who knows how to steward healing. You are not emerging as a victim of warfare. You are emerging as a vessel of glory. This is not survival. This is supernatural positioning. When Joseph was thrown into the pit, betrayed by blood, and forgotten, in prison, it wasn't evidence of abandonment. It was evidence of preparation. The crown didn't come despite his suffering. It came through it. And you, too, have walked through pits others couldn't survive. But the difference is this: you kept your heart clean. You didn't let bitterness grow where purpose was supposed to bloom. You didn't let offense bury the promise. You refused to become like the ones who wounded you. And that is why you are qualified, not by man's standards, but by heaven's, as Jesus himself revealed in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 16, verse 10. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. And that's exactly what's happening. The much is being released, not because you demanded it, but because you demonstrated faithfulness with the little. You didn't curse God when it didn't go your way. You didn't walk away when it didn't make sense. You stayed. You served. You trusted. And now, God is rewarding what others couldn't see. Heaven does not forget the quiet, yes, the hidden obedience, the choices you made when no one clapped for you. Those moments echo louder in the spirit than public victories ever could. And here's what's dangerous about your life right now. You're no longer motivated by the desire to prove anyone wrong. You're motivated by one thing: pleasing the Father. That shift has made you unstoppable. Because now, nothing controls you. Not applause, not access, not acceptance. You've been separated, sanctified, marked, not because you're perfect, but because you said yes and meant it. You are the kind of person who will build in the dark, give without credit, serve without spotlight. And those are the ones heaven trusts with keys that unlock nations. This next level isn't about personal success. It's about prophetic impact, the kind that shifts economies, breaks generational curses, restores entire bloodlines. But to carry that kind of glory, God had to let you taste suffering, so you'd never worship success, so you'd never forget the weight of compassion, so you'd recognize brokenness not as weakness, but as a call to action. You're not just called to walk through fire. You're called to pull others out of it. That's why your words will carry weight in rooms where others just echo. That's why your ideas will break ceilings others couldn't even reach. That's why your presence will shift atmospheres. Because it's not hype you carry, it's heaven's fire. And it didn't come cheap. It cost you everything. Reputation, comfort, familiarity. But what you gained is priceless. You've become a person who is trusted with silence, trusted with waiting, trusted with instructions that make no sense, and most of all, trusted with breakthrough that isn't just for you. You are now a conduit, a carrier, a releaser of what others have only prayed for. And that's why you can't play small anymore. You can't apologize for the access God is giving you. You can't water down your voice to make others feel comfortable in compromise. What you carry is not common. It's costly. And it was never about proving your worth. It was about preserving your purity long enough for the assignment to find you ready. And now, you are. You are not who you were when this started. And thank God. Because the one who is rising now, they've been tempered in fire. They've been schooled in suffering. They've been trusted in obscurity. and they will be unstoppable in purpose. Don't doubt your readiness. You didn't skip steps. You endured them all. And the release you're walking into was not given, it was authorized. Walk boldly. This is not the beginning of something random. This is the unveiling of someone refined. And what's rising now will not retreat, it will reign. You were not just prepared for battle. You were shaped to govern. There is a weight to your obedience that can no longer be ignored. You've crossed the line from hoping something might change to realizing you are the change. You're not just surviving cycles, you're sent to break them. Chosen one. You've been kept in places that didn't make sense to your logic, but made perfect sense to your destiny. And now, what heaven whispered in secret is beginning to echo in public. The shift isn't coming. The shift has already started, and it has your name written in the center of it. You're not just stepping into opportunity, you're stepping into divine responsibility. You've been trusted with weight others never saw. You carried mantles in silence while others chased microphones. You held the line in prayer while others walked away. You sacrificed comfort to remain clean. And now, heaven is placing a demand on the purity you protected. This is the hour where alignment becomes authority. You don't have to force your way in. You don't have to fight for validation. When you're chosen, you're confirmed by fire, not by followers. The pressure didn't disqualify you. It proved you. And the fire didn't burn you. It branded you. You're not entering a season. You're stepping into a divine unveiling. And what's being unveiled isn't just a calling. It's the kind of authority that can rebuild ruined places and restore generations. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms, chapter 75, verse 6. Promotion does not come from the east or the west, but from God alone. He raises up one and brings down another. And God is setting you up now, not for applause, but for assignment. This is not ambition, it's activation. The people you thought forgot you are about to find themselves sitting under your voice. The doors that once rejected you will have no choice but to respond to the authority that's now on your life. Not because you pushed, but because you were processed. You didn't chase the platform. You chased the presence. And now, the presence is about to place you. So don't dim your light to keep peace with people who were never called to your next level. Don't apologize for carrying what you paid for in tears. Don't shrink to fit into spaces that couldn't hold your future. You've been refined. You've been rebuilt. And now, you've been released. And if this word is resonating with you, if it feels like it's peeling back layers that only God could touch, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Let someone else feel the fire you're feeling. Let someone else hear the roar of heaven that's igniting your spirit right now. We are in a time where many are discouraged, distracted, or deceived. But this word, this message, this moment, it's a lifeline. And if you know you're not the only one who needed it, send it. Let the ripple effect begin. And if you haven't already, subscribe, not just to content, but to covenant. Because what you stay connected to determines what flows to you. Stay near the sound that aligns with your spirit. The messages that don't flatter your ego, but call your mantle forward. And if you've received something real, something heavy, something holy through this, don't hesitate to sow. You're not buying a blessing. You're honoring a word. You're building an altar. You're saying to heaven, I recognize the weight of what I just heard, and I'm not leaving it empty-handed. No, whether you sow time, encouragement, finances, or prayer, So with intention. Because intentional obedience attracts intentional overflow, let your obedience speak louder than your emotion. Let your consistency speak louder than your doubt. The world is watching for authentic ones. Heaven is watching for obedient ones. And you're becoming both. You're not just responding to a message, you're responding to a mandate. And mandates birth movement. So, take this seriously. Comment below, not just as a reaction, but as a prophetic agreement. Speak into the atmosphere that you're ready, you're aligned, and you're not turning back. Comment, I will build. Because that's what this moment demands. Builders, reformers, carriers of blueprints and breakers of systems, and you, chosen one, are exactly that. This is not hype. This is your holy instruction. God is raising a remnant, not for crowds, but for kingdom. Not for platforms, but for impact. Not for noise, but for change. And if you've been feeling the pull, the stretch, the tension, it's because your name is among them. Don't sit on this. Move with it. Share it. Sow into it. Subscribe and stay connected to it. You are not being stirred for no reason. You are being summoned, and your response will shape nations. Some breakthroughs don't show up with noise. They arrive in stillness, quiet, sudden, undeniable. That's what's coming for you now. Chosen one. You've walked through enough shaking to know the difference between a storm and a shift. This is not chaos, it's recalibration. This is not loss, it's clearance. God is making room for what was already yours, but could not fit in the last version of you. You prayed for release, and release is coming. But with it comes responsibility. Because divine promotion is not permission to relax, it's a call to rise with reverence. You are not just being upgraded. You are being entrusted. And that's why it had to take this long. Heaven is not reckless with its treasures. God doesn't rush what he plans to rain. He stretches, pre-shapes, refines until the vessel can carry the weight without collapse. And now, you can. Your shoulders are stronger. Your discernment is sharper. Your capacity is deeper. The version of you that doubted everything has died. The version that second-guessed the voice of God has been buried. What's rising now is not a better you. It's the called you. You are no longer negotiating with the instructions of God. You are moving with certainty, even when the path is invisible. Because at this level, you've learned alignment is more valuable than clarity. You stopped asking for signs and started listening for whispers. That's what makes you dangerous. Hell isn't afraid of your gifts. Hell is afraid of your surrender. Because surrender is louder than shouting. Obedience is more powerful than strategy. And stillness in the presence of God is more disruptive to darkness than any external success could ever be. This next release isn't just about provision. It's about prophetic placement. God is moving you into territory not because it's convenient, but because you carry the weight to shift it. There are assignments that could not begin until you healed. There are regions that could not open until you said yes. There are people who will not be free until you speak. You are the answer to a prayer. Someone else is crying right now. Let that sink in. You are someone's rescue. You are heaven's response to their bondage. But to do that, you had to be refined by fire. Not once, not twice, but over and over again, until your motives were pure, your vision was clean, and your resolve was unshakable. You carry a credibility in the spirit that only comes from enduring what others didn't survive. That's why people may question how you got here, but heaven doesn't. Heaven knows. Heaven saw. Heaven approved. Proverbs 3:5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. Oh, that's what you've done. That's how you've made it through. Not by leaning on your gift, your logic, or your connections, but by leaning on Him. And now, the test is shifting. You will no longer be tested in waiting, but in walking, in taking steps without confirmation, in speaking without applause, in giving without a visible return, because faith is not just a feeling, it's a formation, and yours has been formed through rejection, silence, delay, and pressure. But pressure has only revealed that you don't crack, you conquer. So now, as things begin to move, as resources align, as clarity sharpens, don't forget, you were not placed here to coast. You were placed here to confront darkness and release light. You were born to carry solutions, to speak with fire, to walk with weight. That's why you're still here. That's why you've been preserved. That's why the enemy's plans didn't work. Not because you're lucky, but because you're marked. There's no turning back now. No blending in. No settling for surface-level obedience. You've been called to go the full distance. No detours. No delays. No diluted truth. You are not just another voice. You are a divine sound. And sound shakes foundations. You are not just another face. You are a carrier of covenant. And everything in your life that once felt random is now revealing its divine order. You'll look back and realize nothing was wasted. Not one heartbreak. Not one closed door. Not one tear. It was all building this moment. This movement. This mantle. And now that it's resting on you, don't carry it lightly. Don't apologize for it. Don't explain it away. You didn't earn it, but you were forged for it. Walk with reverence. Move with urgency. Speak with clarity. And above all, stay yielded. Because yielded ones are the ones who will lead. Some are called for moments. Others are called for mantles. You, chosen one, were called for both. But your mantle was forged in the hidden places. The kind of places where most people give up, where the noise of doubt is louder than clarity, and where the only thing keeping you moving is the quiet fire of conviction. That fire never left you. It may have flickered. It may have been buried beneath exhaustion or grief, but it was never extinguished, because what God put in you cannot die, not even in the darkest night. You are now stepping into the visible evidence of what your spirit carried in silence. This is what makes your emergence different. It's not manufactured, it's matured. Not rushed, it's refined. Every no you gave to compromise shaped this moment. Every boundary you honored in secret protected this timing. Every time you waited, instead of forcing it forward, you were building spiritual infrastructure for the weight of what's now resting on your life. This is not just about receiving. This is about releasing, because the kind of wealth being transferred into your hands, spiritual, relational, financial, prophetic, was never meant to stop with you. You are not a container. You are a conduit. You're not being blessed just so you can be elevated. You're being elevated so you can become a distribution center for heaven's agenda. And that's why your character had to be purged. That's why your motives had to be sifted. That's why your heart had to be guarded so intensely. Because where you're going, influence without integrity would destroy the very people you're called to liberate. So God didn't just teach you how to hear Him. He taught you how to carry Him. This next level of your life will be marked by one word: wait. Not just spiritual authority, but spiritual accountability. Not just gifts, but government. Not just power, but posture. Because now, the way you walk, speak, build, and serve will have kingdom consequence. You won't be able to pretend you didn't know. You won't be able to ignore the pull. Because now you've tasted too much. You've seen too much. You've endured too much to go back to anything average, emotional, or ego-driven. And that's exactly what qualifies you. You never had to force the call. It found you. You never had to manipulate the doors. They're now opening on command. You never had to seek recognition. Heaven is now putting your name in the mouths of kings. As the voice of God thundered in the book of Exodus, chapter 19, verse 5, "Now, if you obey me fully and keep my covenant, then out of all nations you will be my treasured possession." Oh, you are not simply blessed. You are set apart. The distinction on your life isn't aesthetic. It's prophetic. It doesn't look flashy. It looks holy. It doesn't seek spotlight. It seeks assignment. And while others are chasing trends, you've chosen to chase truth. That's why everything is shifting now. That's why people are sensing something different when you speak. That's why favor is flowing in areas where you used to experience only resistance. This is not hype. This is heaven's unveiling. You've crossed over into the realm where the supernatural becomes natural, where the impossible becomes predictable, where doors don't just open, you become the one who carries the key. You've moved from merely surviving seasons to commanding them. The days of waiting for permission are over. The days of doubting your voice are over. The days of shrinking to be accepted are over. You are not just carrying oil, you are a living altar. You are evidence that consecration still works. That purity still opens impossible doors. That obedience still breaks generational systems. And now that the mantle is resting fully, walk like you know what you carry. No more compromise. No more confusion. No more delay. You are the fulfillment of prayers prayed generations ago. You are the answer to bloodline cries. You are the torchbearer, raised up for this precise hour in history. Let the world speculate. Let systems doubt. Let man misunderstand. Heaven has already decided. You are chosen. You are ready. You are released. And from this day forward, nothing about you will be casual. Your voice will carry weight. Your steps will establish order. Your life will echo obedience. You won't just make impact, you'll make history. The earth will know you were here. But more than that, it will know God sent you. If something in your spirit is still trembling, if your heart is still burning with confirmation, do not scroll past this moment. This wasn't just a script. This was a divine summons. You didn't find this message. It found you. Because heaven knew exactly where to send this word. Heaven knew you were on the edge of obedience, the edge of clarity, the edge of stepping fully into what's already written in your name. So, if you feel seen, if you feel shaken, if this was more than just a good word, do something with it. Share it, not to promote a voice, but to echo the voice of God. Someone connected to you is waiting to hear this exact truth. Subscribe, not just for updates, but to stay aligned with prophetic instruction that fuels your forward movement. Stay close to the sound, that keeps your spirit sharp. Comment below. I will not miss my moment. Let your comment become a prophetic declaration. Let it say to heaven and earth, I have heard, and I will obey. And if the Spirit stirs you so, not because you're under pressure, but because you recognize this was holy ground, because you don't leave divine encounters empty-handed, you leave a response, a witness, an offering that says, this word met me, and I honor it. You're not giving to a platform. You're giving to the altar that fed you. You're planting into something eternal, and heaven always honors a surrendered seed. Chosen one. Your hour is here. The wealth is already scheduled. The mantle is already resting. The instruction is clear. Move. Build. Release. We'll meet you in the next word. Until then, walk like one who's been marked by fire.